Commander Jae-hyun stared at the sensor readings, his three eyes blinking in disbelief. The massive shape floating in the darkness of the void sector was impossible to miss, yet somehow it had avoided detection for centuries. His salvage ship, the Kethmoran, had stumbled upon it purely by accident while searching for rare metals in the asteroid fields. "Captain, that thing is huge," muttered his second-in-command, Pilot Nextar, his purple tentacles writhing nervously around the control panel. "It's at least 3 kilometers long. How did our long-range scanners miss something that size?" Jae-hyun activated the external cameras, and the bridge fell silent. The derelict vessel hung motionless against the star field, its hull a deep matte, black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The ship's design was unlike anything in the galactic database, predatory and elegant, with swept-back wings that gave it the appearance of some ancient bird of prey frozen in flight. Strange. Symbols covered the hull's surface, etched deep into the metal in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The markings pulsed with a faint blue glow, as if some power source deep within the ship still functioned after all these years. "Sir, I'm getting energy readings from multiple locations inside that ship," reported Engineer Veltar from his station. "Whatever it is, it's not completely dead." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Every spacer in the galaxy knew the stories about ghost ships, vessels that appeared from nowhere, crews found dead or missing entirely, strange phenomena that defied explanation. The void sector was notorious for such tales. "Captain, we should report this to the Galactic Council and let them handle it," Nextar suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. "This feels wrong. The energy signatures don't match any known technology." Jae-hyun studied the readings more carefully. The ship's hull composition was completely unknown, made from materials that their scanners couldn't identify. More importantly, the vessel's estimated age put it at over 500 years old, yet it showed no signs of the usual decay and damage that plagued derelicts. "Look at those weapon ports," he said, pointing to the screen. "I count at least 40 heavy cannon mounts, and those launch tubes could hold torpedoes the size of our entire ship. Whatever species built this thing, they were expecting a fight." The salvage crew had seen their share of ancient warships, but nothing like this. Most old vessels were bulky utilitarian designs focused on armor and firepower. This ship was different. It moved through space like it was alive, even while dead. Every line of its hull suggested speed and lethality. "Sir, I'm detecting what looks like a docking bay on the port side," Veltar announced. "The entrance is sealed, but our cutting tools should be able to get through." Jae-hyun weighed his options. Salvage rights in the void sector were first come, first served. If they reported the find to the Council, dozens of other crews would swarm the area within days. But if they could claim valuable technology or materials first, his crew would be set for life. "Prep the boarding shuttle," he ordered. "Full environmental, suits and heavy cutting equipment, and bring the combat drones just in case." "Captain, I really think we should," Nextar began. "The decision is made," Jae-hyun cut him off. "We've been working these asteroid fields for 3 years without a major find. This could be our chance to retire rich." An hour later, Jae-hyun led a team of 6 crew members through the docking bay they'd carved open. Their suit lights pierced the darkness, revealing a cavernous space that could have housed a dozen ships their size. Strange angular fighters hung from ceiling mounts, their sleek forms covered in the same mysterious symbols as the main hull. "These fighters look like they could fly right now," whispered Technician Zorval, running his scanner over one of the craft. "The metal hasn't corroded at all. What kind of alloy stays perfect for 5 centuries?" They moved deeper into the ship, following a main corridor that stretched ahead, like the throat of some gigantic beast. Emergency lighting flickered on as they walked, triggered by motion sensors that shouldn't have worked after so many years. The walls were lined with weapons lockers containing devices none of them recognized, sleek rifles with no visible ammunition, ports, grenades that hummed with contained energy, and armor that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. "Captain," called out Scout Yexhai from up ahead, "you need to see this." They entered a vast chamber filled with rows upon rows of cylindrical pods, each one the size of a small room. Most stood empty, their transparent covers open to reveal padded interiors designed to hold a humanoid form. But dozens of the pods, were sealed, their status displays dark and lifeless. At the center of the chamber, one pod glowed with soft blue light. Its status panel showed readings that pulsed in steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. What species could survive 5 centuries? In cryosleep? Nextar whispered, his tentacles trembling as he approached the active pod. Our best life support systems can barely maintain someone for a few years. Through the transparent cover, they could see a figure inside, roughly humanoid, but with features none of them recognized. The being's skin was pale, its hair dark, and its facial structure suggested intelligence and strength. Strange clothing covered its form, marked with the same symbols that decorated the ship. Suddenly, red lights began flashing throughout the chamber. A deep, thrumming sound echoed through the hull as systems that had slept for centuries awakened. The crew's equipment registered massive power surges flowing through conduits in the walls. A cold, mechanical voice filled the air, speaking in a language they'd never heard before. Then, impossibly, it switched to perfect galactic standard. Unauthorized access detected. Initiating revival protocols. Defensive systems online. Welcome aboard the UES Vengeance. The active cryopod began its awakening sequence, steam hissing from hidden vents as the chamber prepared to release its occupant. Around them, other pods flickered to life, their displays showing readouts in an alien script that seemed to writhe and shift before their eyes. Jae-hyun realized with growing horror that they hadn't found a simple derelict. They had awakened. Something that had been waiting in the darkness for 500 years, something that had been designed to return when the time was right. And now, whatever slept within these pods was coming back to life. The cryopod systems hummed louder. As the revival sequence entered its final phase, Jae-hyun and his crew backed away, their weapons drawn but useless against the advanced technology activating around them. Steam poured from vents along the chamber walls, filling the air with a thick mist that made their suit sensors go wild. "Shut! It down!" Jae-hyun shouted to his technician. "Cut the power cables!" Zorval frantically worked at an access panel, his tools sparking against metal that refused to bend or break. "I can't. The hull material is rejecting our cutting beams. It's like the ship is protecting itself." The pod's transparent cover slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the figure's chest began rising and falling in steady breaths. Its eyes fluttered, then snapped open with startling intensity. The being inside sat up slowly, muscles that hadn't moved for centuries responding with surprising coordination. Captain Min-ho looked around the chamber, taking in the alien faces staring at him with a mixture of fear and fascination. His dark eyes were sharp and intelligent, scanning each crew member with the practiced gaze of someone trained for combat. When he spoke, his voice was rough from the long sleep, but carried unmistakable authority. Where are the others?" he gasped, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "The crew quarters. They should have awakened first." Jae-hyun stepped forward carefully, his translator working to convert the strange language into something his crew could understand. "You've been asleep for a very long time. We're salvagers. We found your ship drifting in the void sector." Min-ho's expression shifted from confusion to growing alarm as his memories returned. Images flashed through his mind. Massive fleets, burning in space, entire worlds going silent, desperate evacuation ships fleeing into the darkness. His face went pale as the full horror of what had happened came flooding back. "The extinction protocols," he whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. "They actually went through with it. The hegemony, they didn't just win the war, they erased us completely." The chamber's lighting changed from emergency red to a soft blue glow. Holographic displays materialized in the air around Min-ho, showing star charts, fleet positions, and data streams in a language none of the aliens recognized. A feminine voice spoke from hidden speakers throughout the room. "Captain Min-ho, welcome back to the living," the ship's AI said with warmth that seemed almost human. "I am Aria, Adaptive Response Intelligence Algorithm. I've maintained ship operations during your extended sleep period." Min-ho swung his legs over the side of the pod, testing his strength. Despite 5 centuries in cryosleep, his body responded normally. The advanced human technology had preserved him perfectly, right down to the muscle memory of his military Training. Aria, status report. How long was I under? 537 years, 4 months, 18 days, came the precise reply. All other crew members failed to survive the extended hibernation. You are the sole remaining human aboard this vessel. The alien crew watched in stunned silence as holographic star maps expanded around them. Entire sectors of space were marked in red, showing territories now controlled by species they recognized: the Zephyrian Empire, the Korthak Federation, the Nexus Collective. All former members of what this human called the hegemony. "Show me Earth," Minho commanded, his voice steady despite his obvious pain. A blue-green world appeared in the hologram, but it looked wrong. The continents were scarred with massive craters, the oceans a sickly brown color. No lights showed on the night side where human cities once blazed with life. "Earth remains uninhabitable," Aria reported matter-of-factly. Orbital bombardment sterilized the surface approximately 500 years ago. All major human colonies suffered similar fates. According to galactic records, humanity is listed as extinct. Nextar's tentacles writhed nervously. "Captain, we should contact the authorities. This being could be dangerous." Minho's head snapped toward the alien pilot, and for a moment, something predatory flickered in his eyes. "Dangerous? Your authorities are the ones who murdered my entire species. Every man, woman, and child killed because they were afraid of what we might become." He stood slowly, moving to a control panel that responded to his touch with familiar ease. The ship around them seemed to wake up further, systems coming online that had been dormant for centuries. The deck vibrated softly as massive engines began their startup sequence. "Aria, what's the status of Project Lazarus?" "All resurrection sites remain dormant and undetected," the AI replied. "Quantum storage banks contain the complete genetic and neurological patterns of 4 billion humans, including yourself. Military installations across 700 worlds await activation. Shall I begin the awakening sequence?" The alien crew exchanged terrified glances. Whatever they had stumbled upon, it was far more than a simple derelict. This was some kind of doomsday weapon, designed to bring back an entire extinct species for revenge. Minho studied the holographic displays showing the current galactic political situation. The species that had once formed the Hegemony Alliance now controlled most of known space, dividing humanity's former territories among themselves. They had grown fat and comfortable in the centuries since their genocide, believing themselves safe from retribution. "They thought killing us would solve their problem," he said quietly, his fingers dancing across control surfaces with practiced skill. "Instead, they gave us time to prepare, time to plan, time to build something they never expected." More systems activated throughout the ship. The aliens' equipment detected power readings that shouldn't have been possible, energy signatures that made their most advanced technology look primitive. Weapon systems that had slept for centuries began running diagnostic checks, preparing for a war that had been delayed but never ended. "Captain," Jae-hyun said nervously, "perhaps we can reach some kind of agreement. We're just salvagers. We have no conflict with your people." Minho turned to face him, and the alien commander saw something in those human eyes that made his blood run cold. It wasn't hatred or anger. It was the calm, calculating gaze of a predator that had just realized it was surrounded by prey. "You're right," Minho said with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You have no conflict with my people, because until today, my people didn't exist. But that's about to change." He turned back to the control panel, his hands moving with decisive purpose. "Aria, transmit activation codes to all Lazarus sites. Begin Phase 1 of the Resurrection Protocol. It's time humanity reclaimed what was stolen from us." Across the galaxy, ancient installations hidden on dead worlds and in deep space began receiving their wake-up call. The age of human extinction was about to end, and the age of human vengeance was about to begin. Minho gestured to the holographic displays surrounding them, each one showing different sectors of the galaxy, lighting up with new energy signatures. The Vorthak crew watched in growing terror as hundreds of previously undetected installations revealed themselves across known space. "You want to know what really happened 5 centuries ago?" Minho asked, his voice carrying the weight of ancient pain. Your precious Hegemony Alliance didn't just declare war on humanity, they declared war on the future itself. The largest hologram showed a timeline stretching back centuries. Images of massive space battles flickered in the air. Human, ships fighting desperately against overwhelming odds, entire fleets being destroyed, planets burning under orbital bombardment. We knew we were losing, Minho continued, walking among the projections like a ghost reviewing his own death. Your alliance had superior numbers, better resources, and most importantly, they had fear driving them. Fear of what humanity might become if we were allowed to grow unchecked. Jae-hyun's three eyes fixed on one particular image, a human vessel unlike anything he'd ever seen, easily the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that defied understanding. What was that thing? The UES Prometheus, Minho replied, with pride. Our greatest achievement and our ultimate downfall. When your alliance saw what we could build, they realized they had two choices: accept humanity as the dominant species in the galaxy, or destroy us completely. The hologram shifted to show the final battle above Earth. Thousands of ships from dozens of species converged on the human homeworld in the largest military operation in galactic history. The human defenders fought with desperate courage, but the outcome was inevitable. They chose genocide, Minho said quietly, but they made one critical mistake. They assumed that killing our bodies would be enough. Arya's voice filled the chamber as quantum transmissions raced across space at faster-than-light speeds. Lazarus Site Alpha 7 responding. Lazarus Site Beta 12 online. 3 construction chambers activating across all sectors. On the holographic display, distant worlds began showing new activity. Deep underground facilities that had been hidden for centuries emerged from the rock and soil, their surfaces gleaming. With advanced technology, massive structures unfolded like metal flowers, revealing laboratories, factories, and living quarters designed to support entire populations. Your Hegemony Alliance didn't just commit genocide, Minho said, his voice growing hard as steel. They awakened sleeping giants. Every human consciousness, every genetic template, every piece of our civilization was preserved in quantum storage banks scattered across 700 worlds. Nextar's tentacles writhed in panic. That's impossible. We would have detected such installations. Our deep space sensors. Your sensors see what we want them to see, Minho interrupted. Human cloaking technology was always generations ahead of anything the Alliance possessed. We had 5 centuries to perfect it. The first reconstruction chamber came online on a world at the edge of Zephyrian space. The facility's quantum computers began their work, pulling stored human consciousness patterns from subspace and constructing new bodies with atomic precision. Within hours, the first new human in 5 centuries would draw breath. Area, show them Site Omega Prime. A new hologram materialized, showing a massive facility buried deep within an asteroid field. The complex was enormous, easily the size of a major city, with manufacturing capabilities that dwarfed anything the current galactic powers possessed. Dr. So Young designed the Lazarus Protocol, Minho explained, as the display zoomed in on the facility's core. Brilliant strategist, the finest military mind humanity ever produced. She's about to be very busy. In the depths of Site Omega Prime, reconstruction began. Quantum patterns flowed through crystalline matrices, building a new body cell by cell. Dr. So Young's consciousness, preserved for 5 centuries, began the journey back to life. With her would come the memories of every battle she'd ever planned, every strategy she'd devised, and most importantly, every lesson humanity had learned about warfare. The alien crew watched in horror as more sites came online. These weren't just resurrection facilities. They were complete military-industrial complexes, capable of producing fleets of warships with technology that made their current vessels look like primitive toys. How many? Jae-hyun whispered, his voice barely audible. 4 billion human consciousness patterns stored across 700 worlds, Minho replied calmly. Not all will choose to return, but enough will. More than enough. Across the galaxy, 11 other massive shapes began moving in deep space. The remaining ARC ships, identical to the UES Vengeance, received Minho's activation signal and began. their own revival sequences. Each carried a crew of humanity's finest, military commanders, scientists, engineers, and strategists who had volunteered to sleep until the species could rise again. Captain Tae-jin awakened aboard the UES Retribution in the Outer Rim. Admiral Hyo-sung opened his eyes on the UES Nemesis near the galactic core. One by one, humanity's greatest leaders returned to consciousness, their ship's advanced AI systems briefing them on the current state of the galaxy. They found a universe that had grown comfortable with humanity's absence. The species that had once feared human ingenuity and adaptability now controlled vast empires. Their fleet spread thin across territories too large to properly defend. They had forgotten the lessons their ancestors learned during the human wars. They would remember soon enough. On Hegemony Prime, the capital world of the old Alliance, ancient monitoring stations that hadn't activated in centuries suddenly blazed with warning signals. Quantum signatures that should have been impossible were appearing across every major star system. Energy readings that matched no known technology were powering up weapons systems of unimaginable capability. Emergency sessions, convened as alien leaders who had grown up on stories of human extinction, realized their greatest nightmare was becoming reality. The species they thought they had erased was returning, and this time they came with 5 centuries of preparation behind them. "Sir," reported a trembling Korthak technician to Fleet Admiral Vexkar, "we're detecting massive power signatures in 17 different sectors. The quantum resonance patterns. They match archived human technology signatures from the old war." Vexkar's scales rippled with fear. His grandfather had fought in the human wars and told him stories of ships that could outmaneuver entire fleets, weapons that could crack planets, and humans who fought with a ferocity that terrified even the most warlike species. "That's impossible," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Humanity is extinct. We made sure of that." "Sir," the technician continued, his voice shaking, "we're receiving a transmission on an open galactic frequency. The source is transmitting in ancient human language." Minho's voice echoed across space, reaching every communication array in the galaxy. His words were calm, almost conversational, but they carried a promise that made entire worlds shudder with terror. "This is Captain Minho of the United Earthship Vengeance, speaking for the returning human commonwealth. To the species that thought they had won, to the governments built on our graves, to the empires that divided our worlds among themselves, we have returned. The age of your dominance is over. The age of human ascendancy begins now." Fleet Admiral. Korthan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Hegemony's Wrath, watching as ships from across the galaxy answered his emergency call. Never before had so many species united under a single banner. Zephyrian battlecruisers, with their distinctive crystal hulls, formed up alongside Korthak destroyers, bristling with plasma cannons. Nexus collective vessels, shaped like geometric puzzles, brought their advanced shield technology, while the insectoid Veltar contributed their swarm fighters. "Over 10,000 vessels and counting," reported his tactical officer, a 6-armed Nethys whose multiple hands danced across control panels. "Every major fleet in the Alliance is converging on the target zone." Korthan's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. His grandfather had commanded ships during the original human wars, and the stories of those battles had haunted his family for generations. But this time would be different. This time, they outnumbered. The humans 1,000 to 1. 1 human ship against our entire armada, he sneered, his voice carrying across the bridge. "Whatever tricks they used 5 centuries ago won't save them now. This ends today." In the Void sector, Minho stood calmly on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the hyperspace signatures multiply on his sensors. The Vorthak salvage crew huddled in one corner, still trying to process what they had witnessed. Aria's holographic displays showed the approaching fleet in perfect detail. Every ship class, every weapon system, every tactical formation. "Captain, we're detecting massive hyperspace distortions," Aria reported. "Fleet composition analysis indicates over 9,700 vessels of various classes. Estimated arrival time 14 minutes. Jae-hyun stared at the display in disbelief. "You need to run. No single ship can face that many enemies. It's suicide." Minho's fingers moved across his control panel with practiced ease, awakening weapon, systems that had slept for centuries. "Run? I've been running for 500 years. Time to stop." The first wave of enemy ships dropped out of hyperspace like angry hornets, their weapons immediately locking onto the lone human vessel. Korthan's voice boomed across all communication frequencies. "Human vessel, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately or face annihilation." Minho activated his communications array, his voice calm and steady. "Fleet Admiral Korthan, I presume. Your grandfather told stories about fighting humans, didn't he? Let me show you why those stories gave him nightmares." The UES Vengeance suddenly accelerated, moving faster than anything that size should have been able to. Its sleek hull became a blur of motion as it dove straight into the heart of the enemy formation. The aliens expected a desperate charge, a suicidal ram attack that would end quickly. Instead, they found themselves facing something far worse. Minho had spent 5 centuries studying every battle in human history, analyzing every tactical mistake, every brilliant maneuver, every lesson written in blood and starfire. The ship's AI had run millions of combat simulations, perfecting strategies that no living commander had ever seen. The Vengeance's weapons opened fire with devastating precision, energy beams that could slice through planets carved through enemy, hulls like paper. Quantum torpedoes phased through shields as if they didn't exist, detonating inside enemy ships with surgical accuracy. In the first 30 seconds of combat, 24 alien vessels simply ceased to exist. "Impossible!" Korthan roared. "All ships, converge on target. Overwhelm it with firepower." But the human ship moved like it was alive, dancing between incoming shots with impossible grace. When 5 Zephyrian cruisers tried to box it in, the Vengeance simply phased out of normal space for a split second, reappearing behind them to deliver killing blows before they could react. Commander Jae-hyun pressed, himself against the bridge wall, watching Minho work with a mixture of terror and awe. The human's hands moved across his controls like a musician playing a deadly symphony, each movement precise and purposeful. "How is this possible?" Jae-hyun whispered. "You're just one ship." Minho's eyes never left his tactical display as he targeted another enemy squadron. "Because you made one critical error 5 centuries ago. You thought killing us would make you safe. Instead, you gave us time to plan our return." The battle raged for hours, but it wasn't really a battle. It was a masterclass in advanced warfare. The Vengeance used gravitational fields to crush enemy formations, deployed quantum mines that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and fired weapons that bent space-time itself to reach their targets. Across the galaxy, other human forces were stirring. On a hidden world in the Andromeda Spiral, Captain Dong-wook opened his eyes in a reconstruction chamber, his consciousness fully restored after 5 centuries. The facility around him hummed with activity as automated systems built him anew. "Fleet from stored quantum patterns. Area 7 status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had once commanded entire star systems. "Captain Dong-wook, welcome back," the facility's AI responded. 37 vessels are ready for immediate deployment. Shall I activate the fleet?" "Do it. It's time to remind the galaxy why they feared us." Engineer Hye-jin awakened in a massive, orbital shipyard disguised as a dead moon. Around her, construction bays that had been dormant for centuries blazed to life, quantum forges beginning work on ships that would make the old human fleet look primitive. "Begin construction of pattern." "Omega vessels," she ordered, her fingers flying over control systems that responded to her touch like old friends. "Full automation, maximum production rate. The galaxy is about to remember what human engineering can accomplish." Back in the Void Sector, the battle was turning into a rout. Korthan's Grand Armada, the largest fleet ever assembled, was being systematically destroyed by a single human ship. The Vengeance moved through their formations like a shark among minnows, its weapons carving through supposedly impenetrable defenses with contemptuous ease. "Sir, we've lost over 3,000 ships," his tactical officer reported. panic creeping into his voice. "Our weapons can't even scratch their hull. Their technology is centuries beyond ours." Cawthon stared at the tactical display in growing horror. Every advantage his fleet possessed, numbers, firepower, coordination, meant nothing against an enemy that fought like it could see the future. The human ship anticipated every move, countered every strategy, and turned their own tactics against. "Them? Fall back," he finally screamed. "All ships retreat to hyperspace, full withdrawal." But Minho wasn't finished. As the surviving alien ships tried to flee, the Vengeance deployed a new weapon, a subspace inhibitor that prevented hyperspace jumps in a massive area around the battlefield. "Where do you think you're going?" Minho's voice echoed across the communication channels. The lesson isn't over yet. The remaining alien ships turned to face him, their crews knowing they were about to die, but determined to face their fate with whatever courage they could muster. They had learned too late why their ancestors had feared humanity enough to commit genocide. The hunted had indeed become the hunters, and the galaxy was about to pay the price for 5 centuries of thinking they were safe. The final armada gathered above Hegemony Prime, the capital world that had once celebrated humanity's extinction. 12 massive arc ships hung in perfect formation, their sleek black hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. Around them, hundreds of newly constructed human vessels took their positions, ships built from quantum patterns and powered by technology that had been refined during 5 centuries of patient planning. Minho stood on the bridge of the UES, Vengeance, watching as the largest military force in galactic history prepared for battle. Every major species had contributed their most powerful warships to this final confrontation. Zephyrian crystal dreadnoughts, Korthak plasma destroyers, Nexus collective geometric battleships, and dozens of other vessel types formed defensive lines around their most important world. "So we're detecting over 15,000 enemy vessels," Arya reported. "They've pulled ships from every corner of the galaxy for this battle." "Good," Minho replied calmly. "Let them bring everything they have. It's time they learned what 500 years of preparation can accomplish." Dr. So Young's voice crackled. Across the tactical network from her command ship, the UES Prometheus, rebuilt and improved far beyond its original design. Her strategic genius had been legendary during the original human wars, and now she commanded a fleet that would have been impossible to imagine back then. "All units, this is command. Execute Protocol Lazarus 7. Show them what humanity learned during our exile." The human fleet began to move, and the aliens immediately understood they were facing something beyond their comprehension. The ships didn't just coordinate, they moved like parts of a single living organism. Advanced AI systems shared tactical data at the speed of thought, creating a hive mind of strategic intelligence that could adapt to any situation. Captain Dong-wook commanded the left flank from his flagship, the UES Retribution. His ships phased in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy formations to deliver devastating strikes before vanishing again. The aliens tried to track their movements, but human technology had evolved beyond anything they could counter. "Enemy Formation Delta 7 is breaking apart," he reported. Moving to engage their command cluster, Engineer Hijin's ships formed the right flank, vessels of her own design that bent the laws of physics in ways that made alien scientists weep. Her weapons didn't just destroy enemy ships, they unraveled them at the quantum level, turning matter back into pure energy that dispersed harmlessly into space. "This is Heijin to all units. Quantum disruptors are showing excellent results. The enemy's molecular cohesion fields can't adapt fast enough to our frequency shifts." The battle raged across multiple dimensions as human ships used technologies the aliens couldn't even detect, let alone counter. Gravitational weapons created artificial black holes that swallowed entire squadrons. Temporal disruptors slowed enemy vessels to a crawl while human ships moved at normal speed. Phase shifters allowed attacks from directions that shouldn't have existed. Admiral Cawthon watched from his command bunker on Hegemony Prime as his supposedly invincible fleet was systematically dismantled. The tactical displays showed losses, mounting at an impossible rate. Hundreds of ships destroyed every minute by an enemy that seemed to exist in multiple realities at once. "How are they doing this?" he screamed at his tactical staff. "Our combined fleets represent the accumulated military might of 50 species. How can 12 ships destroy us?" His chief analyst, a brilliant Nethys mathematician, stared at the data streams with growing horror. "Sir, they're not just 12 ships. Each human vessel is coordinating with autonomous drones, quantum projections, and weapons platforms that exist in subspace. We're not fighting 12 ships. We're fighting 12 entire fleets that happen to share 12 physical anchor points." The alien formations began to crumble as their commanders realized the truth. They weren't facing a conventional fleet. They were facing the concentrated military evolution of an entire species that had spent 5 centuries perfecting the art of war while hiding in the shadows. Minho's voice cut through the chaos on all communication frequencies, his words reaching every alien ship in the battle zone. "Leaders of the Hegemony Alliance, you are witnessing the return of humanity's rightful place in this galaxy. Your ancestors made a choice 500 years ago. Today, you face the consequences." The UES Vengeance dove straight into the heart of the enemy formation, its weapons carving through capital ships like they were made of paper. Behind it, the other Ark ships followed, each one leaving a trail of destroyed alien vessels in its wake. Dr. So Young coordinated the final phase of the battle from her command center, her tactical displays showing the complete collapse of alien resistance. "All units, begin Phase 3. Surround Hegemony Prime and prepare for planetary occupation." The remaining alien fleets found themselves trapped in a sphere of human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Escape routes vanished as quantum mines sealed off hyperspace jump points. The trap was complete, and there was nowhere left to run. As alien command ships burned in orbit around their capital world, the surviving leaders faced a choice their ancestors had never offered humanity. Minho's final transmission reached every remaining vessel, every military command center, every government building on worlds across the galaxy. "We offer you the choice you never gave us," he said, his voice carrying the weight of 5 centuries of injustice. "Surrender now and live. As subjects of the new human commonwealth, your species will continue, your cultures preserved, your worlds protected. Resist and join your ancestors in the history books as another extinct civilization." The silence that followed lasted exactly 60 seconds. Then, one by one, alien fleets began powering down their weapons. Surrender codes transmitted across subspace networks as entire star empires realized their age of dominance was over. The Zephyrian Crystal Empire surrendered first, followed quickly by the Korthak Federation. The Nexus Collective transmitted their capitulation codes with mathematical precision. Species after species laid down their arms, understanding that further resistance would only lead to their complete destruction. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, Minho watched as human settlements began materializing on worlds across known space. Massive construction vessels emerged from hidden storage, carrying the quantum patterns of entire cities. Within hours, human colonies would be thriving on planets that had been empty for centuries. The Vorthak crew, still aboard the Vengeance, watched in amazed silence as their universe transformed around them. Jae-hyun approached Minho cautiously, his 3 eyes filled with a mixture of fear and respect. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Minho turned from the tactical displays, his expression softening slightly. "Now we rebuild. Humanity returns to the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as the rightful inheritors of our stolen legacy. Your species will find their place in our new order, just as we once sought our place among the stars." Across the galaxy, quantum resurrection chambers worked tirelessly, bringing back millions of humans who had been stored as data for 5 centuries. Scientists, artists, engineers, teachers, and explorers opened their eyes to find a universe, waiting for them to reclaim. The age of hiding was over. The age of human dominance had begun, and this time humanity would never again allow itself to be threatened with extinction. The end.